Hello, everybody. Welcome and good evening. Uh, we are the Fargonauts. I'm Wilson, here with my Broachy boys. Say hello, Broachy boys.
Hello,
Hello,
Broachy
Broachy
boys.
boys.
Hey, there we go. So tonight we're going to be watching a movie that is part of, I guess, a duology. We're watching The Exorcist. We're watching Exorcist: The Beginning is the title of the film. The reason that we're watching this and the reason that it's a duology is Exorcist: The Beginning is a 2004 movie that is a retooling of a. Oh no! Wait. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. The beginning. Okay.
okay.
So the beginning was the first one to be released, produced, and released, and then Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist, what was released second.
Okay.
So basically, you have, like, to make it simple, you have two Exorcist movies that came out within a year of each other, both starring Stellan Skarsgård, both shot in the same places. One basically uses a lot of footage from the other with additional scenes shot, a different ending, um, some different scenes and stuff, roughly telling exactly the same story. It's just how they go about telling that story that's different. And just, like, looking into the production and everything is just basically the production was so, like, troubled and bad, and they were so unhappy with the final product. They're like, nope, we're not going to put it out. We need somebody to come in and re-edit it and basically reshoot the movie. I forget the exact series of events. We can talk about it later, but it was basically like they released it. It didn't do well. They're like, shit. Somebody re-edit it, reshoot the movie really quick. Like, just add a few additional scenes, re-edit it, have a different director come in, and then re-release it under a different name. And then they did that, and that didn't go well either. Then they're like, fuck. And that's basically why we didn't get any sort of, like, theatrical Exorcist movie until this most recent one, whatever that one was, Believer, whatever.
And now they're like scrapping, continuing that, and Mike Flanagan has control of it. So,
Yeah.
Wilson,
Yes.
would you say that these duologies um, are trying to pay tribute to the source material, or is it trying to pay tribute to the original film?
Neither. Well, okay, like, pay tribute to.
Or borrow like ideas from,
Well,
or like,
I mean, it's trying to just, yeah, continue the story of the, like, theatrical characters. Really, is as far as, like, what's set down in the movies. It even, in a way, builds upon the Exorcist 2, Heretic, like that. The Black Sheep, another Black Sheep sequel in this series that, like.
still haven't seen the sequels.
Oh,
Still
you
haven't.
have. Oh,
Nope.
damn. Well, it's interesting.
Yep.
That's really, really unique to me that we're watching these two. Like, that these are the sequels you are seeing before. Because
Yeah.
the Exorcist 3 is actually good. It's actually really good. It's just not,
Yeah.
too much like the original. And 2 is really crazy out there. It's like a Godzilla film as far as, like,
Right.
how crazy some of the range of tones and things get. But this, to me, is like such a theatrical anomaly to have.
Right. Yeah, because like, why not just accept defeat and move on instead of
right?
just like,
I don't.
we're
I
just going to
don't
retool
know.
it a little bit and spend more money on it and put it out again.
Yep.
Like, that's insane to me. Just
Yeah.
accept the
So,
loss, move on, dude.
Exorcist: The Beginning is uh, directed by Rennie Harlan, right?
Okay.
Yep.
And then fucking. Yeah, we'll talk about the actual, like, production and stuff, because it's
Right.
it's so messy and the timeline of events is weird, but it's
Are
it's it, I don't know whether it's like sunk cost fallacy or just doubling down, but
Right.
yeah.
Do they share any of the same like actors or characters other than fucking Stellar Skateboard?
Yep. Yes, I believe that there are, yeah, a good number of the same
Okay.
actors and definitely the same characters. There's a few differences in characters and
Is
like
it
you'll
basically the same story?
yeah, it's like I said, it's like they basically tell the exact same story for the broad strokes of like this scene follows that scene, and they accomplish
Right.
the same things, but it's like, oh, this character's name is different, or it's just shot in a different room, or
Not to
you'll see
mention,
it's
it's like they sound very similar. Like one is called
Yeah.
the prequel to The Exorcist. One is the beginning, like Exorcist the
Dominion,
beginning.
prequel to The
Yeah.
Exorcist.
Yeah, the full title is
Interesting.
Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist, and then this one is just Exorcist the beginning. So it's like, which one do you start with? So
Second
I
one's suck an ass title, dude. Prequel to The Exorcist, dude. There's a I don't know if you call it a phenomena or whatever, but with books and stuff, the longer the title of a book, the less likely someone's going to pick it up. And I've got a theory that works with movies sometimes too.
Oh, absolutely.
so the longer the title of the film, the least amount of people are going to see it.
Yeah.
Well, just like the less likely that somebody is just on a whim to be like, I'm gonna watch that.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's why
Choose-
like those
they'll choose
Lifetime
something like-
movies,
I think-
though. Like I don't know.
I think the exception to that rule is Precious, based off the book Sapphire by whatever the fuck. You know what I mean?
Precious, based off the novel, yeah,
Push by
whatever.
Sapphire. That's
Push
what it
by
is.
whatever the fuck it
Yeah.
is.
That might be the exception to the rule, but
Well,
And
I'm gonna
both
get
of these movies are under 120 minutes. They're just like roughly 120
Weird.
minutes. They're both like
yeah. This,
about like they're either 30 or 50 million in budget. I don't know whether you could really say that either of these is, good. I think they're good maybe for like the wrong reasons.
uh-huh.
But one is probably going to be in most people's opinions. If people see both of these, they'll have an opinion of which one is better. And if we are watching Exorcist the beginning, I'm just trying to remember. This may be the one that I felt was subpar between the two, but it's just like it really is like apple flavored oranges and orange flavored apples.
My body's ready.
Nice.
My body is ready to be exercised. Watching these films.
exorcise the demons.
Let's jump into this film, and we'll talk about it once we finish it. And for those who are just watching us discuss this, go watch it for yourself.
Yeah.
And then form your own opinions on it. We're gonna kind of talk a little bit about the production after the fact. So yeah, stick around for our discussion on that, and stay tuned for the Dominion at a later date, and
Prequel to The Exorcist.
Dominion prequel to the Exorcist, and
Prequel to the movie The Exorcist, based off of the novel.
little push by Sapphire. Yeah.
by Sapphire.
The only thing that I would like to see, because you know how sometimes a long time after a movie's initial release or something, they'll somehow do a director's cut or a re-release or some kind of like bonus features, whatever it is. I would genuinely be curious if there's a way to like pick and choose, like take this scene from one movie, take this scene from the other movie, and combine them down into one superior film. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe we can do that after this exercise, because this seems to me like it's, yes, we are going to be kind of doing a review, but also talking about like the structure of the films as like a total, right? Like you said, they're very similar in their pace, they're very similar in their times, and all this stuff. So once we get through these two, we'll kind of see this odd anomaly based on this IP.
It's like you'll be able to watch one no matter what, and that's why I said like I don't think the order that you would watch these in really matters, because it's basically being able to watch one and then watch the other one and say like, oh yeah, I remember this scene from the other, and that's how it went down on the other one. Let's see how they do it here. And it's like a like Mandela effect alternate universe. Like it's just such a weird thing to have two versions of one movie basically.
All right. Well, let's get into it.
Let's do it. Let's
do it, baby.
Let me know if you guys can hear it. Well, we watched Exorcist, the beginning.
Yeah.
What a beginning, huh?
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess it's one way to begin.
I really quick want to ask you guys: was there a moment
No.
in this film? That's it. Like, was there a moment?
There was a series of moments.
No, there's. If you could pick out one of the most iconic images from The Exorcist, like the original, the one that sticks with me is when Marin shows up at the house and the fog and the light, coming out of the room. Like that's the quintessential image to me. Was there an image like that in this film, you think?
Yeah.
For me,
Yes.
in this film, it would be like all those shots of him like brooding with the lantern in front of his face, like in the caverns or like.
Well, there's a couple. Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple shots of him like holding the lantern aloft, and then the Pazuzu statue's in the same frame as him.
Yeah,
and it's good to it calls back to that like shot in the original of them standing on opposite sides of the frame.
I wanted to talk about that real quick because the symbolism behind that image, when he shows up, he's ready to do battle, right? He's gearing up for what he knows, and this movie kind of brought that more into context because he knows what to expect when he goes to visit Reagan, right? He's like, all right, I'm just up for anything because I had to deal with this back in the day.
This is like.
But hold on.
Second retconning. Yeah.
The images are kind of flipped a little bit. If you think about him carrying the lantern through the cavern, and you see that one scene, and maybe I can find it, but it was like a scene where he's in the cavern and you just see him lit up by like a little halo, and like everything else was just dark. I don't know if I could find it, but it was when he goes into the sarcophagus.
Yeah, so that's further.
Is this moment like before this, like a little bit? If we go a little bit back, a little, not that, but like right here. It's like he's lighting up the darkness. He's bringing light into this void of this, eerie demon that's just being imprisoned underneath this church. And it kind of the juxtaposition of both of those ideas where light was emanating out of Reagan's room at him, illuminating him. Now he's bringing the illumination to the demon. So I just thought maybe it's a little bit of a flip around of the ideas, but that's what stood out to me as like an iconic part of this.
I think you're definitely putting more thought into it than anybody making this movie did.
Well, that's what I like to do. That's the kind of stuff that it makes movies worth watching for me. Like,
but
this movie was like, there's a lot wrong with this movie, and we can talk about that. But I like to pick out the things that maybe they thought. Well, maybe they didn't, but just
I'd like to just like talk about this more generally, and maybe talk about like more extensively when we watch the other one.
Of course, right.
This was just very like by the book. Like, think about a early to mid 2000s horror movie. Like there was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, even like Freddy versus Jason. It's like you once you're in it for even 5-10 minutes, you're like, okay, I get what the pacing's gonna be like. We're gonna be in the same like color grading for a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
it's just it settles into its own like feel and tone very very quickly and just doesn't really ever get too far past that. There's a little bit, yeah, at the end, when he when like the sandstorm sets in and the battle starts happening and things devolve and he goes into the church and then down into the sarcophagus. That stuff gets a little bit more like it takes a little bit more of a turn in its tone, but for the most part, this is just so much like uh, here's a scene happening of these people talking to each other, and then oh something slightly weird happens or ominous, and then go to the next scene, and then maybe there's like a couple of little more overt moments peppered in there, but it
Um, The
it
Grudge
was
was popular during the time this movie came out, and the resurgence of Dawn of the Dead came out in 2004 also. So just other horror movies that came around during or around the same time as this movie. Um, this was a slow burn, if anything, kind of a movie. I wasn't really the movie wasn't filled with jump scares or anything like that, and I don't know if the mood really gave it that eerie tone, or like the events that were happening weren't as frightening as what Reagan was going through, because Reagan's issue was like throughout you see her, slowly becoming this demon. In this, you're just like, who's the demon? Like the mystery of who's the demon, and you find out like, oh, it's her.
well they
Oh.
yeah they like kind of try to it's clearly this kid, it's clearly this kid, and then at
Mhm.
the very end it's like oh no, it's her. And
Oh, hold on.
yeah, it's just kind of like this to me, because this, like I said, this is like the second maybe retconning, because in the original movie they make some sort of uh it's the two priests like in the room of the one who's higher up in the church, and they're talking about like this issue and Marin and exorcisms, and they're like yeah, there was some business that he got into in Africa some years ago. Nearly killed him, poor bastard, some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't ever go into it before that, and they don't. It's never even said in the original movie that like, oh, it was Pazuzu or any shit like that. It's just he's been through an exorcism before, and it nearly cost him his life. Uh, and then Heretic, Exorcist 2, it is like uh, very very directly dealing with like Reagan making a connection with the victim that was like in the victim in Africa, and so it like directly details where and what and Marin doing this stuff. So this is like not that whatsoever. This
Mhm.
this this finding of a church underground, like uncovering it, the military involvement, all this stuff is completely different than anything in Heretic, uh, Exorcist 2 Heretic. So it's just
Well, the
it.
bookends where the guy shows up in Africa to tell him, "Hey, I'm looking for this thing," and then at the end, he's like, "You didn't find the thing, but you did find something." It's like, is that okay? All right, cool. That's it. Like, is that
Yeah, he
supposed
was
to tie into something bigger? Or like,
no,
what did that
it
guy
was
want
just
that thing for? Like, what? What? Give me this
he was
thing.
trying to, I think, I don't know if it was like on behalf of the Vatican or somebody. He was just on behalf of somebody. They're like, hey, we heard about this discovery. You're an archaeologist, and with your religious background, you'd be perfect to go and see it. Or like, go find out more and tell us about it. And I think that they were trying to, by some means or another, use the discovery of the church to further their research, or maybe if it was the Vatican, do something with it. But at the end of the movie, the fucking thing gets buried again, and Marin's like, "Oh, better for to stay hidden. I didn't find what you're looking for." There's I don't know. I think it is weird that this is like specific. It could have been any demon, right? It could have been not Pazuzu.
True.
Right.
Didn't need to
But
be.
it's
It's just
Zuzi here.
yeah,
Gotta
it's
be
Zuzi.
Zuzi.
It's just weird that there is because then are we to
Yeah.
it is weird because it's like then are we led to believe that the ruins at the beginning of the first Exorcist is like another site where there's another like Pazuzu statue and another like little head figurine in the rubble and or maybe vaguely supposed to be but that's in Iraq, not Africa. Well, I mean, like uh, Nairobi or Kenya or wherever they were specifically.
Hmm.
Um, there's just like I can see why if this is the second time at bat, I can see why the original thing may have been like seen as like needing to be salvaged, but I don't know that they did too coherent of a job at doing that. I don't want to say like too good of a job at making something better, but it just is like it feels very fractured, very disjointed.
I feel the same way. It was mm, not really what I was expecting. Um, elements. I just like to look through the elements of things that I did like. I try not to pick apart the bad stuff, like the production of it, of its time. CG was kind of on the rise, and so I can give it a pass on the probably archaic means that they use the technology. Um, it still like probably looked horrible on the big screen, like seeing those flawed herky jerky motions of the character when they're possessed, running around. Um, some of the people just looked like they were there so they could get a paycheck. It's like some of the acting was kind of bland and just not inspired. Um,
Yep.
I felt bad for that dude that showed him the hole in the church at first, and then he got like stabbed during the kerfuffle that happened, and it's like, oh
Chuma, yeah.
yeah, poor
His
dude.
like interpreter.
He seemed like he just was very nonplussed throughout the whole movie.
I don't I would be curious to look and see exact because there's only it was only Stellan Skarsgård and one other actor who played the same or were in both productions. Everybody else was different. Let's
Okay.
see who it was. Let's see. Oh yeah, the guy who played Major Granville, the English,
The guy who
Major.
shot the butterfly in his mouth.
Well, yeah, and more than that. But
Oh, he got the butterfly. That's all that mattered, really.
did he?
Yeah. I
Because
mean,
maybe it wasn't even real. It probably wasn't even real. He was just imagining that.
oh yeah. I also did want to point out the image of uh, Marin digging up the empty caskets reminded
Mm.
me of Henry Frankenstein digging up some corpses to make the monster. That was cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Reminded me of the Matthew McConaughey adventure movie Sahara.
Sure did, yeah. Hey, this looks like Sahara.
Yep.
Is that Sahara?
Sahara? McConaughey.
So now, knowing what this movie's about, I'm going to have a lot of things in my head, a lot of check boxes in my head for when we watch Dominion,
Yep.
the prequel. It'll be an interesting exercise, and yeah, I'd like to know what other people think about this movie. So if you got this far, definitely leave comments on what your favorite Exorcist is. Um, where does this rank in your Exorcist films? I'd like to know that, and maybe something you did like about it. Did you like Stellan? I mean, I like Stellan as an
My boy.
actor.
He was doing it the best he could.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he carried it. He carried the movie for sure. And that's a hefty, hefty thing to do.
It's true.
Anything else to say about the film, guys?
Nah, dude.
I think that this was. I think I was correct in my remembering that. I think that this was the less preferable to me of the
Okay.
two. I think the other one
Well,
is.
Did you want to talk about the stuff that was kind of jarring? Like that really, maybe the studio was like, yeah, let's keep that in. You know, Bracho, I
No,
know,
'cause
has
again-
his opinion on the child murders and the
Yeah.
death.
Fuck them kids, dude.
Let's wait to dig into some of that until you have something, the other thing to compare it to, because I think it really will be like, not jarring, but like I said when we were watching it, it's like this version that we just watched. This is what fucking the studio thought would be superior. You know,
They're like, this is great. Let's do it.
choices were made, and to see what could have been, I think will influence the conversation quite a bit.
All right. Well, stay tuned then for when we discuss Dominion, the prequel to The Exorcist. We're staying spooky in November.
Hell of a title, dude.
Stay with us.
Who?